welcome back to another Hashtag Finance Friday, where we are talking about all things financials. And this month, we've actually been going really technical into finances. Last week, we had this amazing interview with Renate Jute, and we were talking all about the month-end close process. And today, I've got something even more exciting. Not that Renate's was not exciting, but today we are talking about debt compromise. And this awesome lady that we're chatting to today, I met up with her and she started talking about debt compromise, and I was like, I don't know what debt compromise is, and I'm a chartered accountant. I mean, how shocking is that, right? So I figured I had to bring her to the table today. So I'm going to introduce you to Renate Jute, is the founder of Noble Prosperity, and I'm just super excited to have her here with us today. But I'll hand over to you, Renate. Please go ahead, introduce yourself, and jump in and tell us a little bit more about this concept called debt compromise.
Thank you so much. Thanks. Yeah, so I think for me, the exciting thing, I think for everyone that needs the service, it's not that exciting. But for me, it's really all about what we can do for businesses. So for the last 20 odd years, I've really been dealing with how to restructure businesses, estates, the financial affairs of individuals and businesses. And now with COVID in the wings, what we have found is that a lot of these businesses now need more than just optimizing and sorting out the back end and the financial affairs. It's now a matter of life and death. They sit with this huge debts, and all of a sudden we're drowning in debt. We don't know which direction to turn. And so for me, it's really a matter of, our slogan has become, don't hesitate, negotiate. Rather than holding on and waiting, come to us. Let us see what we can do for you, because the longer you wait when you have these huge debts in your business, the more crippling it'll become, and the more you run the risk of also being deemed to be trading reckless. And the further you'll fall behind. So the quicker you come to the party, the quicker we can maybe resolve it and find solutions. So yeah, that's why I'm extremely passionate about this, extremely excited. I've partnered with an attorney that actually specializes in liquidations and debt negotiations. And our main aim is to not liquidate businesses, is to see how we can businesses going without entering into business rescue or liquidating. Obviously, those would be our final go-to if we would need to. But we really are pushing debt compromises hard, because when you go to a bank or even to SARS and you want to talk business rescue, everyone's eyes glaze over and you get the hard no. But when you do compromises, people know that they're standing a better chance of getting more than they would in a business rescue or in a liquidation situation. So, yes.
Makes sense.
Yeah, very excited about this.
That is very exciting. But Renate, maybe for those of our listeners that do not understand what debt compromise is, can you tell us what the difference is between this concept of debt compromise and then also versus business rescue, which you've touched on, and also debt consolidation, because that's also a term that we sometimes hear about. And maybe sometimes people think that debt compromise, debt consolidation is the same thing. So can you maybe just add some of the differences there?
Yeah. So a debt compromise is really an agreement that we enter into to pay less on different terms. And this is often made an order of court, which sets it in stone. And that's really a compromise, paying less on different terms. And you do not have to be in financial distress. You don't have to be deemed in financial distress already to be in that negative position before you enter into debt compromises. Also with debt compromises, you can choose a class of creditors. So you can decide who you are negotiating with as well. When you look at a debt consolidation, if you look at the definition of a debt consolidation, and I'll read it here so that I want to actually give you the proper definition. It says debt consolidation is a form of debt refinancing that entails taking out one loan to pay off another. So really that's what I'm taking, all my bits and bobs of debt, I'm throwing it into one debt, and I need a third party to finance that. I'm not putting myself in a better position. Often I'm in a worse position, Because people will go, okay, let's throw your car debt, like the old story for the individuals. I'm not talking for businesses. Let's throw your car debt and this debt and that debt onto your home loan and finance everything over 20 or 30 years. So what are you doing? You're putting them in a far worse position. So debt compromise means I'm taking your debt, I'm going to the specific creditor, negotiating a specific deal, where debt consolidation is I'm taking all the debt, throwing it into one pot and finding a new funder for that debt.
Okay.
When you're looking at business rescue, so business rescue is it's a bit of a different scenario where you have to be deemed in financial distress, number one. Also, what is negative about that is that now a business rescue practitioner is appointed, and the management of the business now vests in that business practitioner. So what happens is, although the business rescue practitioner may not necessarily be the person that will firsthand run the business, he is then deemed to go out and source the people to run the business. But now that would have the best experience, that firsthand did trade the business before, are now no longer allowed. They now have to take orders from this business rescue practitioner. So it already becomes contentious. And then when you look at the success rate of business rescue, when you go and look at the number of rescues that's been entered into versus what is termed then how they deem it as successful is no longer in financial distress. That's how they term it.
Right. Okay.
There have been thousands entered into, thousands and thousands, yet only 400 and odd have actually come out as not no longer financially distressed. I actually wrote a whole article about that, and you can post the link for your viewers. So I have all the statistics. I don't want to bore the audience with the statistics now. But when I looked at those statistics, I was a bit concerned about it, because I am also an executor of deceased and insolvent estates. So I've worked with a lot of these things, and I attended a couple of business rescue training sessions to look at whether that would be something I want to do. And I was just concerned about who's really the party that benefits.
Sure.
And that for me was the concern. So I'm not saying that there's no place for business rescue. I'm just saying that when you have debt in your business, you have generally three options. You can liquidate, you can go business rescue, or you can consolidate, compromise. And for me at the moment, with a compromise, you can go in, you can get much quicker results, and you can have much better results. So I hope I've given you a bit more on the difference between the three.
Definitely. Yeah. And you started touching on it now as well, about the pros and the cons of
Yes.
compromise. So maybe if you want to expand on that a little bit, and we were chatting just before the session about a little bit more of that detail, and it really sounds as if debt compromise, I don't want to call it the silver bullet, but it's definitely the thing that we would want to aim for, right? So maybe just expand on that for us.
Sure. So again, I think it's also a matter of opinion. I mean, people will agree with me or they will disagree with me, and that's a matter of opinion. For me, it is, for every business, it's different. And one has to look at what will work for that particular business.
Right.
But in most instances, the debt compromise would probably have a wider reach. It would be able to help more people. And that's what for us, a very big thing. Almost the number one criteria is with a business compromise, with the debt compromise, you are looking after the employees of that business as well. You're keeping that business going. And for us, that's so important. We want to protect our employees because they are really what our business is about. So that for us is a very big pro. Also, the management still vests in the board of the company. So that's very important. The guys continue trading, and what we do try to do is, when we are involved, where we help, we would be appointed as the receiver to help with the back end of dealing with the creditors, but also to help optimize that business and trade out of the trouble. So we come in an advisory capacity to help the board, but by no means take over on that board.
Yes.
Also, like I said earlier, the business doesn't have to be deemed financially distressed. And another pro,
Difference, right?
very big difference, very big difference. It could be where you can say, look, I know I've got a lot of debt here. I know that it's really troubling me, but I don't need to be financially distressed before I can make these arrangements.
Yeah.
Also, a very nice thing is, even if you've already been placed into liquidation, you can actually come out of liquidation and enter into the debt compromise, where you cannot do that with a business rescue. So if you've already gone into liquidation, you would not be able to enter into a business, into a debt compromise. So that's very nice. Also, there's a lot less formalities and timelines. You know, with a business rescue, it's like when you deal with a deceased estate. So many days, advertise 21 days, then advertise so many, then do this in so many days. With a compromise, it's a bit more informal. So there's still this very formal agreement that is very much in line with a business rescue. So it follows the same formalities, but you don't have all those time delays. You can get in there, sort it out, and start operating. So that is very nice. And then the one thing that I personally like, because I love myself, as you know, a tax book and some tax facts. Man, I love tax so much. So the one thing about SARS also is SARS favors a debt compromise over a business rescue. Of course, with a debt compromise, if you can prove to SARS that your other tax affairs are in order, so that your taxes are up to date, and that they will not be worse off than if you went into liquidation. They are very likely to rather enter into a compromise with you than with a business rescue. Because if you enter into a business rescue, they form part of all the other creditors. They actually stand behind employees. So in a business rescue, that your employees stand in front of SARS. So for SARS, when you throw those balls in the air and you see which one you're going to grab, they're going to go with, I like that compromise better. I'm liking this compromise better. So we've seen some great success. And I know, like I mentioned, this attorney I work with, it's not this long, tedious, now you have to follow this structured process. You go and meet up with the guy at SARS and you say, listen, this is where we're at. This is our compromise. This is what it looks like. And we would like to discuss this with you. And they are a lot more open to that than these very heavy formalities going through court and then not being sure of what's going to happen in the end. So yes, I personally like that we can even negotiate with SARS.
Yes, that is definitely
another pro. I think those are the pros that I would like to lift. I mean, there's a whole bunch of others, but I think those are the main things. Then there are, for me, I really gave it a lot of thought when you asked me, well, what are the cons to compromise? And there were only two that for me came to mind. And it is really a matter of, is it really a con? Because it is a con that will convert into a pro for me. The one is that there is no moratorium on legal action until the court sanctions the order. In other words, we have to now get to this agreement, then we have to meet with our creditors, and only once they agree and we make a court order, then there's now a moratorium and no one else can take legal action.
Sure.
So some people may perceive that as a negative. For us, why we see that as a positive. Once you make the creditors and all parties aware of this, they're very quick to take action. They want to sit, they want to negotiate, they want to come to an agreement, because the longer we drag our heels, the bigger the opportunity for other people to come to the party. So we want to get this thing signed and sorted. So that's the one thing. So although it may be a perceived negative, I think for the party that needs to negotiate the debt, it may be a positive. Also, often for the creditors, what is deemed a negative is that the cost of the receiver is at the end of the day coming out of their pocket, because it's not part of that compromise. But if you look at it as a creditor, if someone owes me the money and I've got an option of either dealing with a business rescue practitioner, high costs, long timeline, give or take whether it's successful, or liquidation, what is my sense to the rand that I will get, versus a compromise, and yes, the purpose of that receiver is it's at the back end. That person's job is to make sure that the court order is honored, that whatever that compromise looks like, that the rules are honored there, that the money flows the way it's supposed to flow. Then as the creditor, I would much rather pay that person and make sure I get my money.
Yeah.
So again, for me, it's organized, it's ordered, you know exactly what you're in for. So for me, that again becomes a pro, although it's a perceived con. And then the last perceived con is the other costs associated. So me as the business owner that need to negotiate my debt or compromise my debt, there's costs associated. I need to pay the attorney. And like I said, the receiver is paid. So, but the same would apply if you went into liquidation. The same would apply if you went into business rescue. And it would be far worse if you had to close your business because you haven't. Yeah. So we've looked at it, and it's far cheaper when you go and look at the three options. Compromise is the cheaper of the three, provided it's also the right thing for you.
Right.
So we would generally not look at trying to enter into debt compromises, like official structured debt compromises, unless the debt is over $1 million, because then it becomes too expensive.
Yes.
But when it's under $1 million, you can do what is called an informal agreement. So it's still an agreement through an attorney, but it's not this very formal process.
Right.
So those are the pros and cons.
Okay, cool. And you started touching on the process, and I would love to know more about the process, but we're almost at our time. So for those of our listeners that are interested in engaging in this process and just understanding more about it, I think Renate has written some blog posts about it, which we'll link in below. But also, at the end of the day, this is a really technical process. You need legal advisors, tax advisors. So get an expert involved. And Renate is someone that can help you with that. So make sure that you are reaching out to her for that consultation. But Renate, just before we end off, I have one final question, because I'm sure this is the question that is on everybody's lips, is how does this affect my credit record?
Okay, so basically the compromise agreement is actually lodged with SIPC, and it's not lodged with a credit bureau.
Right, okay.
So it's not lodged anywhere where they track your credit rate. But it is also up to you when you are applying for credit. When they ask you, have you been in a debt rescue or have you been liquidated? I think it's the honorable thing to say, look, I have entered into a debt compromise, because when you look at the SARS rules around debt compromise, they will not enter into a debt compromise if you have already been in a debt compromise within the last 3 years.
Right, okay.
So is it officially going to affect your credit record? Not to my knowledge, not that we could find anywhere, because it's not lodged anywhere but at SIPC.
Right.
Okay. I think it's a thing about honor. It's your way, your integrity and your honor in which you do business.
Absolutely. Okay. Awesome, Renate. That was a lot of information, and we will definitely be linking in some resources for those of you that might need to look at it in a bit more detail. And I like that you've indicated that 1 million and up, that's the range that you're looking at, right? So that's a good benchmark for us to deal with. So yeah, thank you so much.
Be able to help best.
Absolutely. And make it more affordable. I like that. We're about saving money, yes. So that's great. Awesome, Renate. Really interesting chatting to you. And
thank you.
There's all sorts of other things that you do as well. So do go check out Renate's site. She's got a new website that she's launched just recently. So do make sure you check that out. And just to wrap out this call today, please remember we have a costing application session coming up next week, Wednesday. So if you are still struggling with how to figure out how to cost your products and specifically how to cost your time, but you missed out last time's webinar, it's fine. We've recorded everything for you, and you can come join us in the application session, come be coached, come co-work with us, whatever the case might be. Join us for next week, Wednesday. We'll link the sign up form in the comments below. And we'll see you again next week, Friday, same time, same place, with another potentially technical issue around Finance Friday. So until next week, we'll see you then. Bye-bye.